Dalton Kincaid is officially a Buffalo Bill and was the first tight end selected in the 2023 NFL Draft. What does it all mean? We're talking about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube. If this is your first time joining our show, please like, subscribe. Would love to communicate with you guys in the YouTube comments. You can also hit us up on social media at Locked On Utes. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, we're talking all things the first round of the NFL Draft as it relates to the Utes and the Buffalo Bills now because they decided to trade up and select Dalton Kincaid, 25th overall. For the Bills, didn't cost them much at all. They were at 27, just had to trade up two spots, gave up the 130th pick too. So really not much for them in order to jump Jacksonville, who Jacksonville just kind of decided they were willing to slide back and wait till they were able to get their offensive lineman that they ended up settling on and liking. But either way, for the Bills, Dalton, I think it's a great fit. I think it's a great pairing. I think it was a great move by the Bills because I really do believe Dallas would have taken Dalton had he been there. I mean, this is a Dallas team that hasn't replaced their tight end yet. There's still no really guy there after they decided to let Dalton Schultz walk out the door. And I think they would have been excited to replace one elite Pac-12 tight end with another. But the Bills and Brandon Beane did a great job of just reading and playing the board and realizing that, hey, we're going to jump up and make sure that doesn't happen. So Dalton is officially a Bill. The video was awesome. Great to see his reactions. Devin Kafusi, Cam Rising, Fred Whittingham Jr. are also all there in support. So that was great to see from Utah's perspective. And like I said, I think this is a great fit for both sides. I think when you're talking about Dalton, fit is so important in the NFL. We've seen so many situations. Zach Wilson could even qualify in this, right? Where it's just not been a good fit in New York. And yes, I don't know if Zach Wilson will ever and would have ended up being a good quarterback anywhere else, but fit is really important in the NFL. And everyone wants to go in a situation where they can win and also have their skills and talents maximized. And I absolutely think that's what just happened with Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton is going to help the Bills a ton. And I think the Bills are going to help Dalton a ton too in terms of giving him an opportunity to win at the NFL level, which is really important. So, like I said, I just think it's a great move for both sides. I think it's awesome for Buffalo because to me, you get a guy who has the chance to be the best pass catcher in this draft. Sounds crazy, right? To say a tight end could be the best pass catcher in this draft. It's something Dalton actually said at the combine. I believe he said, I believe I'm the best pass catcher in this draft. I believe when it's all said and done, he will be as well. And as I said, that might sound a little crazy, but let's look back to what Travis Kelce's done. Was he the best pass catcher in his draft? Yes. How about George Kittle? Some of these guys, Mark Andrews, too. They're maybe not the number one, but they're right up there, and any team would love to have them. I do think, especially in this year where the receiving class is solid, but I don't think there's a superstar. I think Dalton can absolutely be the best pass catcher in this draft. And once again, I don't think there was a better place to maximize that than going to Buffalo to play with Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks currently in the NFL, who is still young as well. He's going to continue to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a long time to come. Dalton is going to be playing with Josh Allen in his prime. The Bills get Dalton for the next 5 years, which I think is great. And hopefully even longer after that. I think it's a great fit. I think it's a great culture fit too. I think Bills fans are absolutely going to love Dalton. We just talk about his great personality, what he's able to do, and of course, what he brings on the field. I mean, a strong route runner, does a great job creating separation. Also, just exceptional after the catch, too. We know what he did against USC. I think he had 73 yards after the catch against the Trojans. And Brandon Beane actually even said, we'll talk about it in a second, like that was one of the USC game itself might even be like the number one reason they drafted Dalton, which it makes sense when you're talking about a single game because that's one of the most dominant tight end performances we've ever seen in college football history. But great hands, great job adjusting, tracking the ball. It's also still a solid and strong blocker too. He's not. I forget. I think it's something Washington, the Georgia tight. He's not like that level of a blocker, but he's still a solid blocker and helped the Utes. They've even shown some of the highlights in the draft tonight. How in Jalen Dixon's jet sweep, Dalton was out there throwing the block that ended up being the difference between that being Jalen being forced out the 5 and Jalen being a touchdown. So once again, Dalton is a great player, and I think he's going to have a great opportunity to get his skills maximized. One of the other things I absolutely love about this landing spot too is that Dalton's not going to come in and be the guy. Like the defenses aren't going to be keying in on Dalton Kincaid because who's out there? Stephon Diggs is out there. Gabe Davis is out there. And there's even another tight end who, in terms of NFL success, has been more accomplished than Dalton in Dawson Knox. We'll talk about how that'll work kind of in the second segment with those guys. But I do think that this is just an awesome opportunity for him. And as I mentioned, I just think playing with a receiver, the talent of Stephon Diggs level, seeing the way he approached things. Diggs is a guy who, look, there's all, and I should say, I believe Stephon Diggs is still going to be there. I know there's kind of that whole thing where it's like he was going to leave the locker room early, then ended up get brought back in and all the Instagram stuff. Either way, I'd be surprised if Stephon Diggs isn't a Buffalo Bill. So seeing a guy like that, who's one of the best in the NFL, an exceptional route runner too, just a guy who's worked so hard to get to the point he's at, had so much success. Hello, the Minneapolis Miracle, and so many other great playoff moments and plays that he's made. I think that's a great guy for him to learn from as well. And once again, just the thing I'm most excited about is the opportunity for Dalton to catch passes from a quarterback of Josh Allen. It would have been such a bummer if Dalton had went somewhere like, I know the Packers were rumored in the Washington Commanders. And look, Jordan Love and Sam Howell could have very good seasons. They're not going to have a better season, or more than likely never be better than. I think we'd all be shocked if any of those guys, if either of those two guys passed Josh Allen. They're not going to be better than Josh Allen. So this is a great fit for Dalton. I think if you ask Dalton, who were the 5 quarterbacks he wants to play with when you were to go to the NFL before this whole process, I guarantee you Josh Allen would have been in that top 5, because I think every receiver, every pass catcher would want to play with the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomeses, the Joe Burrows. That's the Justin Herberts of the world. That's why originally throughout this draft process, I had as my top teams for Dalton, I really thought he was going to end up with the Bengals or the Chargers, because I was thinking one of these teams is going to want to maximize what they have in a talented quarterback and get him more weapons on the outside, or just over the middle of the field, obviously, when you're talking about tight ends. So I think that's where it made a lot of sense for them to go tight end and grab a guy like Dalton. And I felt like those teams, especially, were in the position where they feel like they have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I thought they would be in the position where they feel really comfortable taking a tight end and being able to maximize on him too. We've seen a lot of tight ends go really high in the draft, and they end up underwhelming just because they have to kind of try to carry so much of an offense. And that's not easy to do. You do need an elite quarterback to be able to maximize your tight end. Think about the best tight ends in the NFL. They've been paired with elite quarterbacks, really. And yes, some of those guys have dealt with less than ideal quarterback play at different moments in their careers. But when maximized, we've seen what happens. I think about the Lions with TJ Hawkinson. For so long, it felt like he was kind of a disappointment. And even though he was still doing good things, it just felt like it was like, man, he was drafted to be this top 5 guy, and he didn't end up being that. And then you see him go over and join the Vikings, and like right away, he is one of the best tight ends in the NFL once again. So fit matters. It's so important. And I was surprised that Bills ended up being the team, just because, like I said, it felt like from all the draft stuff we've been hearing, the Bills were going to go defense, or I've heard a lot of people say they're going to add a receiver to replace Gabe Davis, whose contract is going to be up at the end of the season. Gabe Davis, their number 2 receiver besides Stephon Diggs. So I was surprised the Bills ended up being the team, but once again, I just couldn't be more excited for Dalton. I think it's a fantastic fit. I think it was a great move by the Bills to recognize their guy that they wanted to move up, go and get him. And I just think this is going to work out for all parties involved. And I think Dalton is going to have not just a monster season, but really a monster career with the Bills. And I'm really excited to see what he's able to do as soon as he gets to Buffalo. And I know he's fired up about it as well. We're going to continue to talk about Dalton Kincaid being drafted 25th overall by the Buffalo Bills in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at Built Bar. With Built Bar, I know you know me, guys. I'm always trying to find a healthy and nutritious tasting option that gives me an opportunity to not really compromise taste, but still provide something that's good for me. And that's one of my favorite things about Built Bar, is that I don't have to compromise taste, and I can still get a protein bar that's incredibly healthy. Just with a whopping 17 grams of protein. There are so many great things about Built Bars. They come in so many amazing flavors too. Peanut butter brownie. There's so many other ones, cookies and cream. They got it all, Built Bar. And they're always updating with new flavors too. So if you guys are interested in checking out Built Bars, make sure you guys head over to built.com today. Look at everything they got. Also, for those of you out in Utah, you can head over to your local Smith's or Sam's Club and pick up your box of Built Bars today. Once again, they're just one of those, they're a great snack because you won't think they're actually good for you. And they really are. There's so many health benefits to having a Built Bar. Can't recommend you guys enough. Head over and grab your Built Bars today, because as I said, they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing back rows. And what's even better is they're healthy, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. So healthy and taste amazing. That's Built Bar. Head over and grab yours today. Alrighty, coming back into this one just to talk about the NFL draft and with Dalton Kincaid and everything that happened there. So continuing, first of all, one thing that was awesome just for the Utah football program that we've been talking about is Dalton was the 10th Ute ever to be picked in the first round. It's also the first time in Utah program history they had back-to-back years with a first-round pick, with Kincaid joining Devin Lloyd, who was drafted 27th last year, where if the Bills had originally just stayed put and kind of waited on him, that's where he would have gone, obviously. So really ends up working out well overall. And I am by far not the only one who really likes this move for Buffalo and what ended up happening for Dalton and his newest team. Let's look what Robert Griffin III said. Dalton Kincaid is a football catching connoisseur. This All American tight end caught 16 passes for 234 yards and a touchdown against USC this past season. He is a willing blocker, but is one of the best pass catchers in the entire draft who laughs in the face of contact. Bills Mafia kind of guy. Also, Chris Sims said, Bills take Dalton Kincaid, number 25, my number one tight end in the draft. Great route runner, ball skills, and violent after the catch. And it's not just pretty boy stuff, he can block. And I've said for a long time now, the Bills needed more weapons. And that was something that was an issue for them this past season for the Bills, was at different moments where if Diggs didn't have it going, you were looking for someone else. And yes, Dawson Knox has done some nice things. And I'm really interested to see who's going to start the season as tight end one. I personally think that by the time this season is done, Dalton Kincaid will be the best Bill on the roster. Excuse me, not the best Bill, geez, the best Bills tight end on the roster overall for the Buffalo Bills. I just think when you look at what Dalton has done, as I said, the exceptional route running, the strong hands, the ability to adjust to the catch. One thing that Josh Allen does so well too is keeping plays alive, making accurate throws on the move. We saw some of Dalton's top catches last year come from after the play kind of broken down a little bit, or Cam is rolling out on the move. That's where Dalton does a great job coming back. He's just got great football IQ, great feel for the game, understanding how to find the soft spots in those zone coverages. And I just really think Josh Allen and Dalton are going to have instant chemistry. So I'm really excited to see those guys get the opportunity to work together because, as I mentioned, Josh Allen's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in football. And I mean, the arm strength, everything, he can rifle passes into those tight windows that Dalton does a great job settling in. We know Dalton has the concentration and the ability to make those catches despite a lot of contact by defensive backs, sometimes early, sometimes legal. That I just think this is a match made in heaven. I really think I think sooner rather than later, I think Dalton is going to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. That may seem like a really bold statement, but I think Josh Allen is in a great position to maximize Dalton. I think Dalton is the perfect extra weapon that Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bills offense needed that would become stagnant at different points last season. That I really think this is going to work. And so many people have called have compared Dalton Kincaid to Travis Kelce. I think, and of course, who are the Bills chasing? The Kansas City Chiefs. I do think Dalton Kincaid will be a Travis Kelce like option. I'm not saying he's going to be Travis Kelce. I think he's got a chance to be a great tight end, as I mentioned. But look, I personally think Travis Kelce is the best tight end of all time. Tony Gonzalez, all those other guys, respect all the other ones too. I just think some of the things that Travis has done makes him the best. So, but what I'm more so comparing is when we think of Patrick Mahomes, we obviously think of his connection with Travis Kelce and how potent they are and how difficult they are to stop together. I do think that in a lesser version of that, that is what Dalton Kincaid is going to be for this Bills offense and for Josh Allen. Getting back to the Dawson Knox thing, Dawson Knox has been a very good tight end for the Buffalo Bills, but hasn't had a season over 600 yards. So while Dawson is a very good tight end, he's not a top 5 tight end. He's a borderline top 10 guy. I'd have to, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly where everyone would have him personally, but I know he's not a top 5 guy. Dalton has a chance to be a top 5 guy. And there are games where Dawson can make amazing plays. He makes some nice adjustments on the ball, will make some spectacular catches, but there's also games where Dawson Knox does disappear. And maybe that'll happen early on for Dalton, but I think especially as he just gets acclimated and used to the NFL, I think he's definitely a guy who's going to have a chance to be a guy who each week you got to watch out for because he can go from 80 to 100 yards per game. That's just the kind he's able to handle the workload. His body he does a good job keeping it in shape. He's able to bounce off contact, get those extra yards too. So I really like Dalton with Buffalo, as I've been saying. Also, at something else. I think Dalton has a chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year here. Because what do you need to do to win Offensive Rookie of the Year? You got to put up numbers, and a lot of the times you got to win too. Those are the kind of the two factors, right? Look, it's going to be a tough year because you're going to have Bijan Robinson with the Falcons, who's going to be everything for that offense, especially with their less than ideal quarterback situation. Some of the other receivers left. Jordan Addison to the Vikings. He'll probably put up numbers with Justin Jefferson attracting so much attention, but and of course the quarterbacks, I mean, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, and Bryce Young will all be playing a ton. So it's not going to be easy, but I do think Dalton will have a chance just because, like I said, the Bills are going to win. The Bills should win the AFC East once again. Yes, I know the Jets have done some nice things, but it's still hard when you bring in a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, even if they've had a familiar history together. It's just a lot of new weapons, new pieces, hard to make all that work. Dalton is sliding into a system that is already working and moving. And I really do think that's going to be a very seamless transition. I think it's going to allow him to have a lot of success early on. I think he could be one of the top pass catchers from this class in terms of production, even in his first season, because of the way this Bills offense is set up for success, because he has a quarterback who can get him the ball accurately, who is not going to miss him on the outside. As I said, I think Dalton's a great culture fit. I think this is going to work right away. I really do. And As I mentioned too, I don't know if he will start the season as tight end one, but I think there's no doubt he'll finish there because look, Dawson's a guy who he's going to be going into his fifth year with the Bills. So that's a lot. And he's also, I don't know if he's under contract after this year. He may be, he may not. I'm trying to remember. Either way, we've seen a ton of NFL teams have success in 12 personnel. So that's two tight ends on the field. And I think it's just a great move to have two elite tight ends because it allows you to do so much in terms of blocking, misdirection, read RPO stuff, all of that over the middle of the field can devastate you. And just getting those big catch radiuses out there where you have that chemistry. I already think that Josh has really maximized what Dawson Knox is too. That I just think once again, he's only going to continue to maximize what Dalton Kincaid is going to be. And it's going to be a great fit. And I do believe he will finish the season as the Bills. I'll say this. I think he's going to be third in the Bills in receiving yards. I think Stephon Diggs will obviously be one. I think Gabe Davis will be two. And I think Dalton Kincaid will be three. And we'll be right up there for offensive rookie of the year with some of the other guys. I do think he'll be the best tight end. Yes, we don't know where the other tight ends are going to get drafted yet in the draft, but I still feel like he's in a outstanding position. And I'll add this just because, like I said, I think he's going to end up I think at some point in his career, we'll be talking about Dalton Kincaid as one of the five best tight ends in the NFL. So I do think we'll look back on this draft and go, wow, like guys like Daniel Jeremiah, who had him as a top 10 prospect, they were right. Dalton should have gone in the top 10. I think even a year from now, we'll see in redrafts, Dalton should have gone in the top 10 because I think he's got a chance to put up over 600 yards in this offense. It's a 17 game regular season. That's a long time. Also, I think he can put up 8 to 10 touchdowns. He's a great target in the red zone. Does a good job working with the plays breakdown, as we talked about. Just a big body you can go up and high point passes to, a sharp route runner. Good job finding those spots and getting open. So I really think this is a great spot for Dalton. I think he can get maximized right in the way in year one. And I got so much respect for the Bills just going up and getting him. And I thought one of the interesting things was from Brandon Beane, just once again talking about how much that USC game meant. This is a quote directly from Brandon Beane. The USC game. I mean, we were watching that game as a group a couple weeks ago with the scouts, and we were going through. It was one segment where we just went through all his targets, and we were like, "Are these the same play?" Like it just kept going and going, and you're amazed at how many catches he had in one game. The defense didn't adjust in the game to kind of slow him down. He definitely was a guy that we didn't have rated as high as we ended up. He definitely elevated himself as the season went on, and he elevated his stock as the draft process went on. That is extremely evident. Michael Mayer was supposed to be the top tight end drafted in this season's in the 2023 NFL draft. He didn't even go in the first round. Only one tight end did. And that's Dalton Kincaid. It's a credit to his work ethic, the time he's put in, how much success he had with Utah, the playing through some of those injuries, being productive. They obviously feel good about the medical and where his back is at, which I think is great. And once again, I think this is just going to be a great fit. I look forward to seeing some of you guys rocking some. I've seen at different points, like some different like Utah jerseys. I've seen a Matt Gay jersey before, Devin Lloyd jersey, even Tyler Huntley Ravens jerseys. I'm excited to be walking around Salt Lake and see Buffalo Bills Dalton Kincaid jerseys. I might end up picking one up myself because I just think this guy's going to be an instant fan favorite. I already know at some point he's going to be flying through a table in some joking fashion or something fun like that. So once again, I am so excited for Dalton. This was not a fit I predicted, but I couldn't be more happy to be wrong because I think it is so great anytime you compare with someone who has a chance to be one of the greats. I think Josh Allen, as I said, is spectacular and is only going to continue to be. And I think if Josh Allen ends up winning an MVP, something that's very possible, it'll be because he has another weapon in Dalton Kincaid who got open on the outside and was a playmaker for him. So really excited for Dalton. Think this is a great opportunity for him and can't wait to see what he and the Buffalo Bills are able to do this season. Of course, Dalton is not going to be the only Ute drafted this weekend. May have been the only one to go in the first round, but there are going to be some other Utes. So let's talk about those other Utes. And really feels like there's three other Utes who are going to have an opportunity to get drafted. First, let's start about the next guy is going to get drafted. That's Clark Phillips. At the moment, in terms of where he'll get drafted, I still feel like he's going to end up being a day two guy. I think there's a chance he slips to day three. As of right now, ESPN's best available board has him listed as the eighth corner right now. You know, Joey Porter Jr. falling out of the first round was a surprise. I will say, just with the Steelers and the legacy of his dad, I would be surprised if Porter doesn't go right away. So I pretty quick expect that number to get down to 7. You get guys like Ringo, DJ Turner, 2, Cam Smith, South Carolina. I think Clark belongs right in the list with those guys. And with Clark too, I don't think he is the eighth best corner remaining. That's just what that list has him on. So I do expect Clark to go in the second, mid second, late second to early third round. Once again, I just think it's a valuable commodity. You have corners you can come in and cover. And that's what Clark does an exceptionally high level. So I'm excited to see where he's going to end up at. I do think, as I mentioned, it'll be in the second round, maybe in the third a little bit, just if the height concerns drop him a little bit. And As I said earlier this week, I still think the Cardinals make a lot, or actually, I can't say the Cardinals anymore because the Cardinals actually traded out to get him anymore. So they don't have any picks to be able to grab him at the moment. But I'll say he'll end up with somewhere like I think the Vikings could use more corner help. So, which the Vikings don't have a second rounder either. So I'm just doing a great job listing teams off the top of my head right now. But either way, Clark's going to find a great home. And let's just say I project let's say the Lions grab him. The Lions were a team a lot of people thought would end up needing a corner. They didn't get him yet. I think Clark would be a great addition to their culture. So I'll go Lions, draft Clark, and once again, second or third round. Another guy I think who's got a great chance to hear his name called tomorrow, that being or the time by you listening to this today, is Braden Daniels. He's currently the fourth rated interior offensive lineman. Now, granted, that was where he started the night. There were no interior offensive linemen taken in the NFL draft, but I think this is a great place for him to be. I think when you're talking about what Braden Daniels can bring to an offense, I think this guy's got a little bit of versatility. He could play right tackle if he needed to play. I think he could play center. He's obviously ready to go at either guard spot. So good depth early on, can develop into a future starter. And I know the Raiders picked up an edge rusher, as I said earlier this week. I think they could use an offensive lineman. So I think in the third round, we're going to see the Raiders or some team like that take a swing on Braden because he's a reliable guy, a veteran, someone who learns playbooks, high IQ player, very strong, good, technically sound. I really like Braden. I think he's going to make an NFL team extremely happy. So it's going to be fun to see where he ends up. I do think Braden and Clark go because one of the most important things in the NFL is obviously in the first round, most of the quarterbacks are gone. Sorry, Will Levis. But in the second round, you're looking at the other most important pieces in building a roster. What are those? Corner, offensive line, receivers, two pass rushers, defensive linemen. Those are kind of the five next main group positions. And I really do think there are going to be a lot of teams who have Braden Daniels and Clark Phillips towards the top of their draft boards, especially as the process wears on and more guys are taken off their board. So I do expect Clark and Braden to still hear their names called tomorrow. And if Braden doesn't hear his call tomorrow, and if somehow Clark doesn't either, I expect those guys to go very quickly in round 4. But we do have one other Ute to talk about who is still on the board, and I still believe going to get drafted. Unfortunately, I will say I do think he's going to have to wait till day 3 of the draft, and that is Mahmoud Diabate, who's currently the 13th ranked outside linebacker on the best available on ESPN. We've talked about this before. I think when you talk about Diabate, this is going to be a team that's looking to develop him. I think he needs more work if you want to use him on the inside. I will stay. I think he's ready to step into the NFL and get pressure on quarterbacks from the outside. So I think that's where it makes a lot of sense. I think the right fit is going to be crucial and key to his development overall. I think Dante Guardi said the Rams earlier this week. I think the Rams are the kind of team that would love to get their hands on him, develop and kind of help mold him. And Diabate is a guy who's worked exceptionally hard. He was helped his Utah team still win a Pac-12 championship last year. He's a guy who can make big plays, big tackles, and I really think he's best pinning his ears back and flying off the edge. I don't know how much he'll contribute in the first year, but I do think as a 6th or 7th round pick, I think he makes a lot of sense. He absolutely should have been invited to the combine, and I still think he's going to hear his name called because teams are just going to want to take a chance on that athleticism because I really think he's going to be able to go out there and make some plays. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do. I'm excited to see what Clark's going to be able to do. Braden, Diabate, where all these guys, I'm interested to see where their future NFL team is going to be and just excited to see what they're going to contribute. Just as I can't wait once again to see Dalton Kincaid get to work with the Buffalo Bills. And I can't wait to hear Allen looks deep, finds Kincaid. He's got it. Touchdown, Buffalo. I cannot wait to hear that because I know that first touchdown Dalton scores in front of the Bills Mafia is going to be absolutely wild and it's going to be something special to behold. So Dalton Kincaid, huge winner of the night. Buffalo Bills, huge winner of the night to get, once again, a guy who has a chance to be the best pass catcher in the draft with the 25th overall pick. Absolute home run, grand slam, whatever you want to call it to me. So it's going to be fun where the other Utes end up finding their home. And once again, congrats to Dalton and the Buffalo Bills for landing a great tight end and for Dalton finding an opportunity where he's going to be able to compete for Super Bowls in his first year, which is what every NFL player wants to do. They want to be able to produce, contribute, and win. So that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. Thank you guys for listening. If this was your first time joining our show, make sure you guys like and subscribe once again. You can also follow me on social media at JT Wistrcill or our show at Locked On Utes. Next week, we'll be reacting to the NFL draft, also talking about a few more of the newest and latest news for Utah football. There's a certain transfer wide receiver who may be coming to Utah. All that and more on next week's Locked On Utes.